Farnsworth. This is the behavior observation presentation. Heather Lee is my partner, but unfortunately we were unable to get it to where we can record together. She did work really hard on her portion of this presentation, so I don't want you to think that she was slacking in her duties, but she just wasn't able to be here to record or connect to record. So we're just going to go through this, and I hope that this is helpful to you guys. Okay, so this is behavioral observation, triangulation. What is it? Systematic observation is a tool used to record and categorize select human behaviors in therapeutic recreation services and or research. So this is specifically watching behaviors of an individual, not interpreting what the behavior means, not really doing any of that sort of thing. It's really just like watching and recording behaviors that happen or don't happen, and things like that. Okay, so why we need it and when exactly we need it. Why? So in the reading that we had this week, it talked about how in our everyday observations, our skills in that, they can be vague, random, selective, non-directive, and can end up usually distorted. Because we take so much information in every aspect of our lives, our brains have to filter what's important and what's not important, and that's how we've learned to live. But when we're working with a client, we need to be a lot more objective and observant, and not necessarily filter what we see and what behaviors actually happen. And so we need to be pretty specific in what we're doing and observing for when it's for our clients. In our textbook, the client assessment in therapeutic recreation services, it's the green one, they talk about like when a specialist would need to do a behavioral observation, and this is for when they need to document typical client performance or behavior, when they want to document unusual client performance or behavior, when they need to confirm the results of another non-behavioral assessment, and or compare one client's behavior with another client's behavior. So those are just some reasons why we might in the future need to do a behavior observation. Okay, so there's essentially 6 steps to conducting an observation. In the reading that we had this week, it listed a 6th step. In the book that I was studying from, it really only listed 5, but so basically there's 5 or 6 steps according to these resources. So the first step is choosing a natural behavior to observe. So really defining what you're looking for, and really being specific in this so that when you see it or when you don't see it, it can be measurable. So it just talks about how the specialist or researcher might select global domains of behavior, such as social interaction, patterns, adaptation to disability, or physical activity. The second step is selecting appropriate observational settings. For behavioral observation, ideally, we want it to be in the most naturalistic setting, because we don't want things to influence how this person actually behaves. But sometimes that's not realistic. That's not going to happen. We don't have the resources for that a lot of the times. And so sometimes you have to do it in a clinic or in a less ideal setting, but we have ways that we can still make that still very valid and learn a lot from those observations. So you just have to assess your situation and see what's available to you and what you can do with this client and go from there. And then deciding the mode of recording observation. We're going to talk a little bit later about different types of observations that we have to choose from. So I'm just going to kind of set that off as a side note for later. But this does depend on kind of, again, your resources and what exactly you're looking at, what behaviors you've chosen. Okay, determining the sampling strategy. So this is determining who and how many people are going to be observed. So are you observing just one person? Is that what you need? Or are you in a situation where you need to watch a group of people? So if you're determining like social interaction behaviors, then you might need to have a group of people, whereas if you're watching a child play by themselves, then it's more of a one-person situation. So you need to determine that and what factors go into that. And then there's the training of the observers. And this is a really, really important step because as human beings, we make mistakes and we have human error. And so we're not a machine, but for behavior observations, a machine can't do what we need it to do to gain the information that we need. So training observers is really, really important. The people who are observing, they need to be, it says, intimately familiar with the rationale, the uses, the implementation, the scheme, and analysis of data. And they really need to be objective. So in some of the reading, it really said to train the observers at the same time, in the same way. And then if this is going to be kind of more of an ongoing process where you're going to do behavioral observations every so often, then these observers need to be you need to upkeep the training periodically, and they need to all be doing that the same time in the same way, so that it just kind of keeps the observers objective and somewhat the same. And then it says the validity and reliability of this process can be increased by using multiple observers and multiple methods. And that kind of goes along with what we're going to talk about with triangulation later. And then the last, I guess, the last step, the last optional step, or it's not really optional, but in the list of steps that were listed, some of them didn't list this and some did, but either way, you're going to analyze the data. And as CTRSs and researchers, we use statistics, percentages, and studies to analyze it. So, all right, so this brings us into triangulation. And triangulation is pretty much just using multiple data sources so that you cover your bases and get the most information and most accurate information. So instead of just doing one observation by one person in one certain way, you can have 2 or 3 or however many observers observe the behavior and do it in different ways so that the information you get can be more useful, more helpful. So reasons to triangulate is a single method can never adequately shed light on a phenomenon. Using multiple methods can help facilitate deeper understanding. And then, so for methods of triangulation, there's checking out the consistency of findings generated by different data collection methods, triangulation of sources, examining the consistency of different data sources from within the same method, and then analyst triangulation, it's using multiple analysts to review findings or using multiple observers. So it's kind of like what I said earlier. So this really helps with validity and reliability of the information that you glean from your observations. Okay, and then this is just kind of just a picture to kind of diagram to show you. So if someone was to do more of a quantitative observation, and then someone was to do a more qualitative, you would bring it together, compare and contrast, and then interpret. And so you'd get the good information from each of those and combine them so that you have more valuable information. Okay, so this brings us to the types of observations that we can do. So there's direct and indirect. So direct just basically means that the observer is present, and the person being observed knows more or less that knows that they're being observed. I mean, I guess it does say that they can be unknown, but still that person is really present and in the situation. And then indirect, the observer is not present, and this can be also known and unknown. So known would be like the client comes in and knows that they're coming in for an appointment to be observed, and maybe they're in this room and are asked to do a certain thing, and the observer's like behind a mirror watching them. And then just kind of unknown, I think, would be more of like the observer is maybe watching them in one of their more naturalistic settings, wherever that could be. And then methods of observations include checklists, rating scales, anecdotal records. I don't know how to say that word, but critical incidents. Incidents. So a checklist is much more yes/no ratings. So did this behavior happen or not? And there's no in between. Rating scales has that in between. It measures the degree in which it happened. So it has a little bit more I don't know. I see it as more qualitative, and I see checklists a little bit more as quantitative, yes, no answers, black, white type of thing. The next one, anecdotal, really don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, records. Just really also, so it's similar to checklists. No, sorry, I'm reading the wrong thing here in my lap. Sorry, they provide more of narratives and factual descriptions of an actual behavior. So checklist is yes, no, rating scales is to what degree, and anecdotals give a lot more information. So they give a description of what happened and whatnot. And then critical incidences are very similar to anecdotal records, in that they provide a narrative and stuff, but these report on like atypical client behavior and stuff like that. So like it's more of a special incident is what I got from different readings. So, and then here's our resources. I hope that this was helpful, and that I hope that you guys can understand behavior observation a little bit more. I think this will be very useful in TR, because honing our, not only using this as assessments is going to be useful, but I think as we use these, we will hone our observation skills, which is always going to be useful as a TRS in being attentive to our clients and recognizing changes in their behaviors, in their actions, in their choices, in their how they are interacting with us or interacting with others, or attitudes towards the program. And so and not only as TRSs, but in everyday life, being observant is something that is very useful, and so I think that this is a great thing to be learning about. So I hope you guys are having a good week, and good luck to everybody on the midterm. Say your prayers. I'm praying really hard, studying. So you can do it. Thank you.